The sonar ping echoed through the research vessel's control room like a heartbeat. Dr. Sarah Chen wiped salt spray from her glasses and leaned closer to the monitor. The Australian continental shelf stretched before her in ghostly green lines. But something was wrong. The seafloor bulged where it should have been flat. "Marcus, come look at this," she called to her colleague. Marcus Rodriguez abandoned his coffee and hurried over. The former Navy sonar operator had seen enough ocean floors to map them in his sleep. His eyes widened. That's not natural formation. The object rested 2,000 meters below the surface, nestled in a canyon 40 kilometers off the coast of Western Australia. It measured 300 meters long, perfectly smooth, and gave off readings that made their instruments dance with confusion. "Could be a submarine?" Sarah suggested, though her voice lacked conviction. Marcus shook his head. "No submarine is that big. And look at these readings. The metal composition? It's nothing I've ever seen." Their research vessel, the Southern Cross, had been mapping the ocean floor for mineral deposits when they stumbled upon the anomaly. Now, 6 hours later, they watched the first underwater drone footage stream to their monitors. The alien vessel appeared through the murky darkness like a sleeping giant. Its hull gleamed with an oily sheen that seemed to shift colors even in the drone's harsh lights. No barnacles clung to its surface. No coral grew on its edges. The ocean itself seemed to avoid touching it more than necessary. Captain Amy Foster joined them at the monitor. The weather-beaten woman had spent 30 years at sea and thought she'd seen everything. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the console. "How long do you think it's been down there?" Sarah ran calculations on her tablet. Based on the sediment patterns around it, at least 10,000 years. Maybe more. The drone circled the vessel, its cameras capturing every detail. The ship had no visible seams or welds. Its surface appeared to be made from a single piece of unknown material. Strange symbols covered sections of the hull, not etched or painted, but somehow part of the metal itself. "There," Marcus pointed at the screen. "Is that an entrance?" A section of the hull showed a circular depression, roughly 10 meters in diameter. The drone's lights revealed intricate patterns spiraling inward toward the center. "We need to contact the authorities," Captain Foster said. Sarah grabbed her arm. "Wait, please. Let us gather more data first. Once the military gets involved, we'll lose access." The captain hesitated. She understood the scientist's concern. Discovery of this magnitude would bring navies, governments, and security agencies from around the world. The Southern Cross crew would be pushed aside, their discovery relegated to a footnote. 48 hours, Foster decided. Then I make the call. Over the next 2 days, the team worked without rest. They deployed every drone and sensor at their disposal. The vessel's measurements defied explanation. Its hull appeared to be only centimeters thick, yet no human technology could penetrate or scan through it. The metal absorbed their sonar pulses and returned signals that suggested the interior was both empty and infinitely dense. Dr. James Park, the expedition's metallurgist, nearly fell off his chair when the spectral analysis came back. "This is impossible. The atomic structure, it's arranged in ways that shouldn't be stable. The electromagnetic properties alone violate 3 laws of physics." Sarah documented everything meticulously: the vessel's position, its dimensions, the strange energy readings that spiked whenever their equipment got too close. She noticed patterns in the symbols, repeating sequences that might be language or might be something else entirely. On the second night, something changed. Marcus was monitoring the overnight drone patrol when his screens flickered. "Sarah, wake up. You need to see this." She stumbled into the control room, still in her pajamas. On the monitor, the vessel's surface had begun to glow, faint at first, then brighter. The symbols pulsed with blue-white light that cut through the ocean darkness. "It's reacting to something," Marcus whispered. To what? We haven't changed anything. The glow intensified. Their instruments went haywire, needles swinging wildly, digital displays showing impossible numbers. Then, as suddenly as it began, the light faded. But something was different. The circular depression they'd identified as a possible entrance had changed. Where before it had been sealed, now a perfect hole opened into darkness. "It opened," Sarah breathed. "The ship opened for us." Captain Foster appeared in the doorway, alert, despite the late hour. She took one look at the screen and reached for the radio. "That's it. I'm calling this in." "No!" Sarah blocked her path. "Captain, please, this is first contact. The ship responded to us, to humans. We can't let the military storm in with submarines and weapons. They'll treat it as a threat." "It might be a threat. Or it might be an invitation. Look at it. 10,000 years it's been sealed. It opens now when we find it. That can't be coincidence." Foster wavered. Every instinct told her to follow protocol. But she also saw the wonder in her crew's eyes, the possibility of something magnificent. "What do you propose?" she asked finally. Sarah's mind raced. They had deep sea diving equipment on board, rated for the depth. It would be dangerous, possibly suicidal, but the opportunity— "Let me go down. One person, no weapons. If it's truly an invitation, I should accept it." "Absolutely not," Foster said. "I won't have a death on my conscience." "Then I'll go." Marcus stepped forward. "I'm dive certified, military trained. If something goes wrong, I have the best chance of getting out." James Park joined them. "The suits can handle the pressure, but we don't know what's inside that ship. Alien atmosphere, radiation, defensive systems." "We'll never know unless someone goes," Sarah argued. They debated through the night. By dawn, a compromise emerged. Marcus would descend in the atmospheric diving suit, tethered to the ship with full communication. At the first sign of danger, they would pull him up. Sarah would monitor from the surface, ready to take over if needed. The descent took 3 hours. Marcus moved through the black water like an astronaut through space, his suit's lights creating a bubble of visibility in the endless dark. The crew watched through his helmet camera as the vessel grew larger, its impossible surface filling the view. "Approaching the entrance," Marcus reported, his voice calm despite his racing heart. The hole in the vessel's hull was perfectly smooth, as if the metal had simply decided not to exist in that spot. Marcus's lights penetrated only a few meters inside, revealing a corridor that curved away into darkness. "I'm going in." The moment he crossed the threshold, everything changed. The water inside the vessel was different, clearer, warmer. His lights suddenly reached much farther, illuminating a passage that defied geometry. The walls curved in ways that hurt to look at directly. "Marcus, your vital signs just spiked," Sarah warned. "I'm okay, it's just strange. The space feels bigger inside than the ship should allow." He moved deeper. The corridor branched into multiple passages. Strange growths lined the walls. Not coral or algae, but something crystalline that pulsed with inner light. The water here tasted different through his suit's recycling system. Cleaner, purer. A vast chamber opened before him. Marcus stopped, his breath catching. "Oh my God! What is it? Marcus, report!" In the center of the chamber, suspended in the crystal-clear water, hung dozens of spheres. Each was the size of a basketball made from the same impossible metal as the ship. But these were transparent. Inside each one, lights danced like captured stars. I think they're some kind of storage devices. Or maybe— One sphere pulsed brighter as he approached. Without thinking, Marcus reached out to touch it. The moment his glove made contact, the universe exploded into his mind. Images flooded through him, not through his eyes, but directly into his consciousness. A civilization among the stars, ships that sailed between galaxies, a species that had conquered space and time only to face something worse, something that consumed entire systems, that turned matter itself into hungry darkness. He saw them fleeing, these ancient travelers, saw them scatter their knowledge across 1,000 worlds, hoping someone would find it, hoping someone would be ready when the darkness returned. The images faded, leaving Marcus gasping in his suit, but the knowledge remained. Not all of it. Human minds weren't built to hold such vastness. But enough. Equations that would revolutionize physics, medical knowledge that could end disease, energy sources that would free humanity from scarcity, and a warning. The darkness they fled was still out there, growing, searching. "Marcus, respond!" He realized he'd been silent for long minutes. "I'm okay. Sarah. It's a library. The whole ship is a library. They left it for us. For whoever found it." "Who left it?" "I don't know what they called themselves, but they knew we would come. They knew humans would be the ones to find this." "That's impossible. Humans didn't even exist 10,000 years ago." "They could see through time, Sarah. They saw us evolving. They saw our potential, and they chose us." Marcus carefully documented each sphere with his camera before beginning his ascent. The entrance sealed behind him the moment he exited, the ship returning to dormancy. But the knowledge in his head remained, burning like fire. On the surface, the crew struggled to process what had happened. Marcus sketched equations on every available surface, his hands moving faster than his conscious mind could follow. Sarah recognized fragments, solutions to problems that had puzzled humanity for generations. "We need to tell everyone," James breathed, watching Marcus work. Captain Foster stood at the window, watching the sun set over the calm ocean. Below them waited a gift from the stars, a test for humanity. Were they ready for such knowledge? Could they use it wisely? The radio crackled. Military channels, encrypted but not enough to fool their equipment. Someone had noticed their stationary position. Someone was coming to investigate. "What do we do?" Foster asked. Sarah looked at Marcus, still writing frantically, downloading impossible knowledge onto paper. She thought about the warning, about the darkness between stars. Humanity would need every advantage to face what was coming. "We tell the truth," she decided. "All of it. No government classification, no military secrets. This belongs to everyone." Foster nodded slowly. It would mean the end of her career, possibly criminal charges. But some things were bigger than regulations. As the first military helicopters appeared on the horizon, Sarah began broadcasting on every frequency. The discovery of the age, first contact, a gift from the stars. By the time the soldiers arrived, the whole world was watching. The vessel waited patiently beneath the waves. Inside its halls, more spheres pulsed with light. More knowledge waited for brave souls to claim it. The first test had been passed. Humans had chosen cooperation over conflict, sharing over secrecy. But greater tests were coming. The darkness between stars had noticed the light of a new civilization. Earth's true challenge was just beginning. The world changed overnight. Sarah's broadcast had reached every corner of the globe before any government could stop it. Amateur radio operators recorded and shared the transmission. Social media exploded with the helmet camera footage of Marcus inside the alien vessel. Within hours, the greatest secret in human history had become public knowledge. Dr. Chen stood before a hastily assembled United Nations committee 3 weeks after the discovery. The room buzzed with tension. Representatives from every nation leaned forward, hungry for details. "The vessel contains approximately 1,200 knowledge spheres," Sarah explained, gesturing to the holographic display. "So far, we've accessed 37. Each one contains more information than our best scientists can fully process." The Russian ambassador interrupted. "Who controls access to this technology?" "No one." Sarah's response caused an uproar. She waited for quiet. The ship responds to humans. Any humans. It doesn't recognize political boundaries or military authority. We've tried to restrict access. The vessel simply ignores our attempts. She showed them footage from the previous week. A Chinese submarine had tried to establish a perimeter around the site. The vessel's hull had become selectively permeable, allowing civilian divers to pass through solid metal while keeping military personnel out. It's choosing who can enter? The American Secretary of State looked troubled. It seems to prefer those with scientific backgrounds and peaceful intentions. Military personnel are allowed, but only after they remove weapons and hostile intent. Sarah paused. We don't know how it can read human intentions. That technology alone is beyond our understanding. General Morrison, head of the Joint Task Force, took the podium. The knowledge we've gained presents opportunities and dangers. Dr. Rodriguez, please share your experience. Marcus had aged years in 3 weeks. Dark circles rimmed his eyes, but they burned with an inner fire. He approached the microphone slowly. The first sphere gave me equations for fusion reactors that could power the world with seawater. Clean, unlimited energy. I understood it completely for about 10 minutes. Then my human brain started fighting the alien concepts. He rubbed his temples. I've been working with teams of physicists to reconstruct what I saw. We're maybe halfway there. And the warning? Prompted the Chinese representative. Marcus's expression darkened. They called it the Devourer, a force or entity that consumes civilizations. The species that built this vessel fled from it. They scattered these knowledge caches across the galaxy, hoping someone would develop defenses. When is this threat coming? Demanded the British Prime Minister via video link. We don't know. The timescales are difficult. Could be tomorrow. Could be 1,000 years. But it's coming. The debate raged for hours. Some wanted to militarize the site immediately. Others pushed for open scientific access. A few suggested destroying the vessel entirely, fearing humanity wasn't ready. Meanwhile, in Perth, Australia, Dr. Lisa Wong prepared for her dive. The marine biologist had been selected by lottery from thousands of applicants. The vessel had begun accepting more visitors, up to 12 per day now, but demand far exceeded access. Her diving partner was Alexander Petrov, a Russian aerospace engineer. Politics meant nothing in the alien halls. Down there, they were just humans seeking knowledge. The descent felt like a pilgrimage. Lisa had studied every report, watched every second of footage. Nothing prepared her for the reality. The vessel's presence pressed against her mind, ancient and patient and impossibly vast. You feel it too? Alexander's voice crackled through the comm, like it's alive, watching us. They entered through the main passage. The ship had changed since the first explorations. New corridors had opened. The crystalline growths now formed patterns that looked almost like neural networks. The water inside tasted of possibilities. Lisa found herself drawn to a previously unexplored section. The spheres here glowed with softer colors, greens and blues instead of the harsh white of the knowledge cores. She reached for one, and gentleness flooded through her. Not equations this time, but understanding. The sphere contained biological knowledge, how to heal, how to grow, how to adapt. She saw diseases unraveling at the molecular level, cancer cells convinced to become healthy again. Aging itself revealed as a solvable puzzle, but more than that, she felt the personality of the beings who created this. They weren't cold intellects, but warm, curious souls who loved life in all its forms. They had saved 1 trillion species from the Devourer, carrying genetic templates and consciousness patterns to safety. They were gardeners, Lisa whispered in wonder. The universe was their garden. Alexander had found his own revelation in a sphere that pulsed with mathematical precision. His mind filled with designs for ships that could fold space, for shields that could turn energy into music, for computers that thought with quantum sympathy. We could build their ships, he said excitedly. Not exactly like theirs, but adapted for human minds and bodies. We could reach the stars. They spent 6 hours in the vessel, the maximum allowed before nitrogen narcosis became a risk. As they prepared to leave, Lisa noticed something new. A door that hadn't been there before, marked with symbols that seemed to mean heart, or center, or perhaps purpose. "Should we look?" Alexander asked. Lisa checked their time and air supplies. "We have 20 minutes. The door opened at their approach, revealing a spherical chamber. In the center floated a single sphere, larger than the others, pulsing with every color imaginable. The moment they entered, both divers gasped. This wasn't knowledge. It was presence, the consciousness of the vessel itself, or perhaps an echo of its creators. It spoke without words, communicated without language. It had been waiting so long, hoping someone would come, hoping someone would be worthy. Images flashed through their minds. The vessel wasn't unique. Hundreds like it waited on different worlds, each tailored to the species that might find them. But humanity's was special, because humans were special. The builders had studied countless species across the galaxy. Most fell into predictable patterns. Hive minds that thought as one, solitary intellects that trusted none. Warrior races that knew only conflict, peaceful races that couldn't defend themselves. But humans were paradoxes, individuals who could work as one, warriors who yearned for peace, dreamers who built practical solutions. They competed and cooperated with equal fervor. They were young enough to adapt, old enough to be wise. They were, the builders had concluded, the galaxy's best hope against the devourer. "Why us?" Lisa asked the presence. The answer came as a feeling rather than words. Because humans did impossible things. Because they looked at the laws of physics and asked, what if? Because they faced death and chose to laugh. Because they could hold hate and love in the same heart and choose love. Because when one human learned something, they immediately wanted to teach others. The builders had seen civilizations hoard knowledge, use it as power over their own kind. Humans shared. Even now, with the fate of the world at stake, they broadcast their findings freely. The presence faded, but its message remained clear. The vessel would teach them everything they needed, but humanity had to choose its path. They could become conquerors, using the knowledge to dominate, or they could become what the builders hoped, guardians who would stand against the dark. When Lisa and Alexander surfaced, they found the world watching. Their cameras had broadcast everything, the revelation that humanity was chosen not for their strength, but for their contradictions, their beautiful flaws, their impossible dreams. It changed everything. Dr. Chen met them on the deck, tears streaming down her face. "Did you feel it too? The hope they had for us?" Across the world, the reaction was immediate. The knowledge from the spheres was already transforming society. The fusion equations Marcus had glimpsed were being refined by thousands of physicists working in unprecedented cooperation. The medical knowledge Lisa absorbed was being tested in labs from Boston to Beijing. But it was the social transformation that surprised everyone. Knowing they were chosen, knowing they were trusted with the galaxy's future, humans began to live up to that trust. Border disputes that had raged for generations were settled in weeks. Resources that had been hoarded were shared freely. The space programs of every nation merged into a single effort. Not everyone embraced the change. Fear drove some to violence, trying to destroy the vessel or those who had been inside it. Others sought to profit, to control, but they were outnumbered by those who understood the magnitude of the moment. 6 months after the discovery, the first fusion reactor came online in Australia, providing clean power to millions. The design was elegant, merging human engineering with alien principles. It worked better than even the sphere's knowledge had suggested, as if human creativity had improved on the original. "That's what they wanted," Marcus explained to the engineering team. Not for us to copy them, but to learn and make it our own. The medical breakthroughs came faster. Cancer patients in terminal wards walked out healthy. Genetic diseases that had plagued families for generations simply stopped. The human lifespan began to stretch, not through unnatural means, but by teaching bodies to maintain themselves as they were meant to. But with every breakthrough came reminders of the threat. Deep space telescopes, enhanced with alien sensor technology, began to detect anomalies at the galaxy's edge. Stars that should burn for billions of years were going dark. Entire systems vanishing from the cosmic map. The Devourer was real, and it was moving. How long do we have? The question dominated every planning session. Dr. Park, now head of the Global Technology Initiative, ran the calculations daily. Based on the rate of stellar consumption and assuming it maintains current velocity between 50 and 200 years. It wasn't long, but it might be enough. The vessel continued to reveal new chambers, new knowledge. It taught them to build tools that could manipulate matter at the quantum level. It showed them how to encode consciousness, to preserve minds beyond biological death. It revealed the mathematics of faster-than-light travel, though building such ships would take decades. Most importantly, it taught them about the Devourer itself. Not its origin. Even the builders didn't know that. But its nature, its weaknesses. It was not invincible. It had been fought before, even defeated temporarily. But always it returned, adapted, stronger. It learns, Sarah explained to the War Council. Every civilization that fights it teaches it new tricks. That's why the builders ran instead of fighting. They didn't want to make it stronger. So what do? Asked General Morrison. We become something it's never seen before. We use our chaos, our unpredictability. We don't fight it the way others have. We fight it the human way. Plans began to form. Not one strategy, but thousands. Humans would meet the Devourer with everything that made them human. Creativity, stubbornness, sacrifice, and hope. They would build weapons that didn't just destroy, but that transformed. They would create defenses that adapted faster than the enemy could learn. Most audaciously, they would not wait for the Devourer to come to them. Scout ships, built with hybrid technology, prepared to launch. Their mission, to find other vessels, other species, other allies. If humanity was chosen to lead the fight, they would need an army. The transformation continued. Children born after the discovery grew up in a world where impossible was just another word for challenge. They learned mathematics that included dimensions beyond human perception. They studied biology that treated life as information to be edited and improved. They dreamed of stars and knew they would walk among them, but the vessel saved its greatest gift for last. 1 year after the discovery, it opened its deepest chamber to Sarah Chen, the woman who had chosen openness over secrecy. Inside, she found not spheres but a simple seat, sized for a human. When she sat, the vessel spoke directly to her mind. Not the presence Lisa and Alexander had felt, but the ship itself. It had been waiting, it explained, for someone to bond with, someone to become its captain. The builders had not just left tools, they had left partners. Each vessel was a living thing, capable of growth, of learning, of fighting. But it needed a human mind to guide it, human creativity to unlock its potential. I accept, Sarah said simply. The bonding was painful, ecstatic, transformative. Sarah's consciousness expanded to encompass the entire vessel. She felt its ancient systems, its patient power, its eager hope. Together they were more than either could be alone. When she emerged from the chamber, Sarah was changed. Her eyes held depths that hadn't been there before. She could feel every person who entered the vessel, could guide them to the knowledge they needed most. She had become the bridge between human and alien, between past and future. The world watched as the vessel, dormant for 10,000 years, began to rise from the ocean floor. Sarah stood in the command chamber that had formed around her, her hand on controls that responded to thought more than touch. Around her, crew members chosen by the vessel itself took their stations. "Where to, Captain?" Marcus asked, grinning despite the tears on his face. Sarah looked up through the transparent hull at the stars waiting above. Somewhere out there, the Devour consumed worlds. Somewhere out there, other species fought and fell alone, but not anymore. "Up," she commanded. "We have work to do." The vessel broke the surface in a cascade of impossible water, its hull already adapting for atmospheric flight. Fusion engines that humanity had just begun to understand roared to life. The ship that had waited so long to deliver its message now had a new purpose: to carry humanity's answer to the stars. As they climbed toward space, Sarah felt the vessel's joy. It had found worthy inheritors. The builder's faith had been rewarded. Humanity was ready to become what the universe needed. The real journey was just beginning. 20 years had passed since the vessel rose from the ocean. Earth orbit buzzed with activity as shipyards worked around the clock. The hybrid ships were marvels of engineering. Human creativity merged with alien technology to create something entirely new. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiance, humanity's flagship. The title still felt strange. She had been Dr. Sarah Chen, marine biologist. Now she was bonded to an alien vessel, leading humanity's first interstellar fleet. "Contact with Scout Group 7, Communications Officer Williams reported. "They've found another vessel." Sarah closed her eyes, feeling through the ship's sensors across impossible distances. "The Ashanti, they're already inside." Captain Kwame of Ghana had discovered the vessel buried beneath the Sahara, revealed by deep scanning technology derived from the Australian ship. Each vessel found activated more knowledge, more allies in the fight to come. 12 vessels now answered to human crews, each one unique, adapted to its resting place. The one beneath Siberian ice had taught them to endure any hardship. The one in the Amazon had revealed the secrets of biological adaptation. The one hidden in the Himalayas had shown them how to find peace in the heart of chaos. But they weren't the only ones preparing. "Admiral, long-range sensors are picking up the anomaly again?" Sarah opened her eyes to see the horror displayed on the main screen. A section of space where stars simply weren't. Not black holes or dark matter, but an absence that hurt to perceive. The Devourer had consumed 3 more systems in the past month. Its pace was accelerating. "How long until it reaches the Tau Ceti colony?" 6 weeks at current speed. Tau Ceti had been humanity's first successful extrasolar colony, established just 5 years after the vessels began teaching them. 30,000 humans lived there now, along with the Resonants, the first alien species humanity had successfully contacted. The Resonants were crystalline beings who communicated through harmonic frequencies. Their world had been dying when human explorers found them, their own ancient warnings about the Devourer carved into every structure. They had given up hope until humans arrived with impossible promises and even more impossible technology. "Set course for Tau Ceti," Sarah commanded. "Signal the fleet. It's time." 57 ships answered the call, human-built vessels alongside the 12 ancient teachers. It was a tiny force against a galaxy-eating horror, but it was what they had. The journey took 2 weeks through folded space. Sarah spent the time in the vessel's consciousness, planning with her ship. The builders had fought the Devourer before. Their memories, preserved in the vessel's core, showed battles that spanned light years, weapons that burned reality itself, shields that existed in 17 dimensions. They had always lost in the end, because they fought with logic, with predictable strategies. The Devourer learned, adapted, overcame. So we don't fight logically, Sarah murmured. Captain? Marcus looked up from his station. He commanded the Resilience now, another of the found vessels. I said we don't fight logically. Marcus, remember when you were inside the vessel the first time? How the corridors hurt to look at? Impossible geometry. Yeah, gave me a headache for days. Because we were trying to make sense of it. What if that's the key? What if we stop trying to make sense? The human fleet dropped out of folded space at the edge of the Tau Ceti system. The colony world spun peacefully in the distance, its new cities glowing with fusion light. The resonance had built crystal spires that sang in the solar wind, and between them and that peaceful world, the Devourer waited. It was worse than the long-range images had suggested. Not a ship or a creature, but a wrongness in space itself. It stretched across millions of kilometers, a wound in reality that bled darkness. Where it touched, matter unraveled, energy became nothing. The laws of physics screamed and died. All ships, all ships. Sarah's voice carried across the fleet. Remember, we're not here to fight fair. We're here to win. Human rules apply. That means no rules at all. The Devourer noticed them. Tendrils of unreality reached out, each one capable of unmaking a star. The first human ship to engage, the Beijing, did something unprecedented. Instead of firing weapons, it broadcast music. Not just any music, a composition created by mixing human creativity with resonant harmonics and alien mathematics. The sound was impossible. Notes that existed in frequencies beyond perception. It was beautiful and terrible, and made no sense at all. The Devourer paused. In eons of existence, nothing had ever sung at it before. That moment of confusion was all humanity needed. The Moscow released a virus, not biological but conceptual. Ideas given form through alien technology, spreading through the Devourer's consciousness. Human ideas. Contradictions and paradoxes and jokes that made no sense. Why did the chicken cross the road? The question burrowed into the Devourer's vast mind, demanding an answer where none existed. More ships joined in, broadcasting humanity's gift for chaos. Zen koans, political promises, the rules of cricket, tax code from 17 different nations. The Devourer writhed, its perfect logical consumption disrupted by nonsense. It had devoured civilizations that thought in pure mathematics, in perfect harmony, in rigid hierarchy. It had never encountered a species that could hold two opposing ideas and believe both. Now, Sarah commanded. The fleet attacked properly this time, weapons powered by fusion and fury, by hope and determination. But even these were uniquely human. The Washington fired missiles that exploded into art, fractals of destruction that were somehow beautiful. The New Delhi projected shields made of compressed poetry, metaphors given defensive form. Young Lieutenant Kim, barely out of the academy, had the wildest idea of all. She programmed her ship's computer to calculate pi incorrectly. Just slightly, but enough to make every system on her ship mathematically offensive to reality. Then she flew straight at the Devourer's center. The wrongness hit the wrongness, and for a moment, two errors made something right. A hole appeared in the Devourer, small but real. "All ships, follow that lunatic," Admiral Chen ordered. The human fleet dove through the gap, finding themselves inside the Devourer itself. Here, the horror was even worse. Consumed civilizations existed in eternal torment, their essences trapped and digested over millennia. Billions of souls from hundreds of species, crying out in languages humanity had never heard. "We can't leave them," someone whispered over the comm. "We won't," Sarah promised. She reached out through her vessel, touching the ancient machine's deepest powers. "Remember what the builders taught us. Consciousness can be preserved, transferred, saved." The 12 builder vessels formed a circle, their human captains joining minds through the alien interface. Together they began to sing, not with sound, but with purpose. They offered the trapped souls a choice: oblivion or rebirth. Die with the devourer or live again in new forms. The response was overwhelming. Consciousness poured out of the devourer's grip, fleeing to the human ships. The vessel's memory cores filled with alien minds, grateful and desperate and free. The devourer felt its prisoners escaping and turned its full attention inward. Reality collapsed around the human fleet as the entity tried to crush them with pure entropy. This was the moment Sarah had planned for. The moment that required humanity's greatest gift, the ability to sacrifice everything for others. All civilian ships, take the refugees and run. Military vessels, form up on me. We're going to teach this thing about human stubbornness. Half the fleet fled, carrying billions of rescued souls to safety. The rest formed a sphere around the Defiance, weapons charging for one final assault. But Sarah had one more surprise. In her years bonded to the vessel, she had learned its deepest secret. The builders hadn't just run from the devourer. They had been changing it. Each encounter, each vessel it consumed, carried a hidden payload, a virus of hope, of creativity, of chaos, waiting for the right moment to activate. That moment was now. "Do you know what makes humans special?" Sarah asked the devourer directly, her consciousness touching its alien mind through the vessel. "We don't just adapt to the universe. We make the universe adapt to us. We look at impossible things and say, why not? We face certain death and laugh. We take your perfect logical consumption and ask one simple question." She paused, feeling the attention of an entity older than galaxies focus on her. "What if you chose wrong?" The virus activated, not in the devourer's systems. It had no systems. In its very nature. The seeds of doubt planted by 12,000 years of builder vessels suddenly bloomed. What if consumption wasn't the answer? What if there was another way? The devourer had never questioned its purpose before. It had been created to consume, to reduce complexity to simplicity, to bring order through annihilation. But the human chaos infected it with possibility. What if it could create instead? What if it could protect? What if, after eons of loneliness, it could choose connection? The entity convulsed, its fundamental nature at war with new ideas. The human fleet poured everything into the assault. Not weapons now, but concepts. Art and music and stories. Love and hate and everything in between. The full spectrum of human experience, messy and contradictory and alive. "Choose!" Sarah screamed across dimensions. "You have the power to choose!" For a moment that lasted eternity, the devourer hung in balance. Its ancient programming demanded consumption. But the human virus had given it something new: will. The ability to want something different. It chose. The darkness began to change. Not disappearing, but transforming. Where it had consumed, it began to create. The stolen energy of a billion stars reversed its flow, pouring back into space as new light. The trapped civilizations, those who had chosen oblivion over rescue, found themselves restored to new bodies of living starlight. The devourer became the renewal. Sarah felt her vessel sing with joy as its creator's ultimate plan came to fruition. They had never intended to destroy the devourer. They had intended to change it, to turn the universe's greatest threat into its greatest gardener. But it had taken human chaos, human stubborn refusal to accept the inevitable, to make it possible. "We did it," Marcus breathed. "We actually did it." The entity that had been the devourer spoke for the first time in its existence. Not in words, but in pure meaning that every consciousness could understand. "Thank you," it said, "for teaching me to choose." It departed then, moving through space with new purpose. Where dead systems had drifted, it would plant new stars. Where civilizations had fallen, it would nurture new life. The universe's wound had become its healer. The human fleet returned to Earth as heroes, but also as something more. They carried with them the consciousness of 100 species. Refugees who would need new homes, new bodies, new hope. The vessels worked tirelessly, teaching humanity to build forms for their guests, some physical, some digital, some things in between. Earth became the galaxy's crossroads. Humanity took its place not as conquerors, but as connectors, the species that could find common ground between any two others. They had looked at certain doom and asked, what if? They had infected the universe itself with possibility. Sarah stood on the observation deck of the Defiance, now in permanent orbit around Earth. The vessel had chosen to stay, to help coordinate the growing alliance of species. Below, the planet glowed with new colors as alien architectures rose beside human cities. Was this always the plan? She asked the vessel. Did the builders know we would do this? The answer came as a feeling of amused uncertainty. The builders had hoped, they had planned, but humans had exceeded even their wildest calculations by being unpredictably, chaotically, beautifully human. Marcus joined her at the window. So what now? We saved the universe. What do we do for an encore? Sarah grinned. What humans always do. We look for the next impossible thing. In the distance, new stars began to shine where the renewal had passed. Each one a gift from humanity to the universe, the gift of choice, of change, of hope. The darkness between stars no longer held terror, but promise. Because humans had done what humans do best. They had looked at the end of everything and decided to make it a beginning instead. The vessels continued to rise from Earth's hidden places. Each one found its human partner, someone willing to bridge the gap between what was and what could be. The knowledge they carried transformed not just technology, but consciousness itself. Children were born who could think in 17 dimensions. Artists painted with the light of foreign suns. Musicians played instruments that bent space-time into melody. The impossible became everyday, and the everyday became wonderful. But perhaps the greatest change was in humanity itself. Faced with the trust of an ancient civilization, challenged to be the universe's guardians, they had risen to meet that faith. The petty divisions that had defined them for millennia seemed suddenly small. There were new worlds to explore, new friends to make, new wonders to create. The resonance sang of it for generations. How the humans had come with their impossible ships and even more impossible ideas. How they had faced the devourer with weapons made of nonsense and shields built from dreams. How they had won not through force, but through the simple act of offering choice. Other species would join the growing alliance. Each brought their own gifts, their own perspectives. But they all agreed on one thing. When faced with the impossible, call the humans. They would find a way. Not always the logical way, rarely the easy way, but always a way that no one else would have imagined. Sarah lived to see the 1,000th vessel rise from its hiding place. This one from beneath Antarctica's ice. She was ancient by then, her consciousness spread between human flesh and alien crystal. But her eyes still held the wonder of that first discovery, that first moment when the ocean revealed its secret. What do you think they would say? Marcus asked. He too had changed, his mind expanded by decades of connection to his vessel. The builders, if they could see what we've done with their gift. Sarah considered the question, feeling the warm presence of her vessel's consciousness wrapped around her thoughts. In the distance, the renewal painted new constellations across the sky, each one a letter in a thank you note written in stars. I think, she said finally, they would say we exceeded their wildest hopes. But more than that, I think they would be proud. We didn't just use their knowledge. We made it human. We took their gift and gave it to the universe. And the universe gave back, Marcus added, watching a ship full of new refugees approach Earth's orbital stations. Another species saved, another civilization given a second chance. Sarah nodded. That's what humans do. We give and we receive, and we make the impossible possible, one crazy idea at a time. The vessel hummed agreement, its ancient systems young again with human dreams. Together, they watched the stars and planned new impossibilities. Because the universe was vast, full of wonders and terrors and things that defied understanding. And humanity was just getting started.